Talk to me a little bit about Ole's position within the organization. You know, I think a lot of our listeners sometimes confuse Georgia Championship Wrestling and Jim Crockett Promotions because they were both on TBS. Talk to us a little bit about what Ole's position was within the company.
Well, they went to Ole and, they said, this was all a shoot. We got a kid down here, he's an Anderson. Apparently we got a little bit of the background on that. We understand you gave him his name and all that. Well, Ole didn't even remember that. Ole owned Georgia Championship Wrestling, which he purchased from Jim Barnett. So his last history in the business was being the boss, being the booker, being a top guy, and all that entails as far as payoffs and financial reward and all those things. So they said, hey, you might want to watch the show, because he had removed himself from the business entirely, but that kid that you gave a name to, and Ole will tell you the story. Hey, I don't even remember that. Well, let's see. So he watched the show and he went, damn, that kid's gotten a lot better, apparently, because, I didn't remember him, but there's some potential there. And they said, would you like to come back and work some? Well, Ole was holding all the cards. Ole's a wealthy man. He was definitely wealthy at that time. And, they were asking him. He didn't need them. They needed him. And would you be interested in doing some tags? So he agreed to it. And Ole came in holding all the cards. And they were trying to expand already with to go back and run Ole's old territory, which was Georgia. And then they would run tours up in Ohio, West Virginia, and it was a separate territory. You'd go up there once or twice a month, and then you would run the Georgia towns. And Ole was very familiar with it, so they sent us down and put us in an angle with Manny Fernandez and Thunderbolt Patterson and they put us on top down there. And I think Dick Slater was the resident booker, or at least carrier of the information at the time. So they were already trying to expand and revive Ole's old territory.
Let's circle back to Ole for a minute. He's your tag team partner on this show, and he sort of laid the groundwork that you felt like Jim Crockett needed him more than he needed Jim Crockett. He was already sort of well-to-do based on his investments outside of wrestling, and of course owning a territory and being a top guy for years and years through those territories. What did you learn from Ole? I mean, obviously you could probably write a book about that, you being a young guy and him being the older vet, but is there one thing that you still carry with you that is still applicable today that you learned from Ole that you could share with us?
Yeah, I learned a lot from Ole, and Ole was as cantankerous back then as he is today. And everybody knows how that is today, for due reasons and several reasons. But the fact was, I respected Ole Anderson. I idolized Ole Anderson. Bell to bell, being on that apron and watching what he brought to the match when he stepped through the ropes, it was entirely different than anybody else in the match. No matter what they thought about Ole had gained the respect of wrestling fans, and they knew he was a tough son of a bitch. There was no doubting that. And Ole just taught me, when you get in there, make a babyface earn what he gets with you. Don't just go in and start bouncing around. And I'm a hyped up 26-year-old. I'm in there wanting to, shit and get it. I'd come over and tag Ole. He'd go, why are you taking all those goofy ass bumps? Well, it didn't register in my mind that he was probably right, but I was just trying to create excitement for the match. So it wasn't a bad thing. Just in his mind, if we wanted to get over, if I wanted to get over quicker, be a little more selfish. And he never said those words, hey, be selfish out there. He just said, hey, quit taking all those goofy bumps. So I learned the bell-to-bell stuff and making a babyface earn his way through a match, which translated to the audience respecting that babyface. If he was just in there steamrolling all the heels, that gets old pretty quick. So I learned that from him. There was an old cliche that the old timers used to always say to the young guys, save your money. This ain't going to last forever. Save your money. It took me a while to listen to him because I started with absolutely nothing. When I went to Crockett, I had a Toyota Corolla with my television in the back and some clothes and about $600 in my pocket. And that's all I had to my name. When I got to Crockett, Ole became my partner. It would always be, save your money, kid. It looks like you're going to be in a good position. Save your money. Well, I had to buy a house. I had to do some things. And once I got married and had a child on the way and all those things, that was all stuff that I had to accumulate from not having anything. So that save your money started to kick in. And I took that advice as well. And let's just say overall, my experience with Ole was a learning experience.